The scene opens with a group of men putting a new star in the street for a celebrity named Elizabeth Sparkle, and we see that she is quite famous. As the years go by, we see the star begin to crack and fade with age. We next see Elizabeth years later, still doing her popular fitness show on TV. After she finishes her routine, she leaves the set to head back to her dressing room. She tries to stop at the restroom on the way, but it's out of order, so she decides to sneak into the men's room. Once she gets inside the stall, we see another man come into the room, talking loudly on his phone. We find out that he is her boss, Harvey, and he is talking about how they need to find a replacement for her, somebody younger and more attractive. After he finishes his business and leaves, Elizabeth walks out of the stall slowly, hurt by what she had just heard. On her drive home, she gets distracted when she sees her billboard being taken down and gets into a car accident. Luckily, it seems she is okay, somehow surviving with barely a scratch. After he tells her the good news, the doctor is called away, but his young assistant stays behind a moment longer. The assistant tells her there is one more test that he needs to perform and opens up the back of her gown. After checking her breathing, he begins to pinch her spine in several places, and he tells her that she is a perfect candidate. He then tells her that she is good to go, and as he hands her back her coat, we see that he has a large birthmark on his wrist. After leaving the building, Elizabeth reaches into her pocket and finds that the assistant had left something for her inside. It appears to be a USB flash drive with the words "The Substance" printed on one side, with a phone number on the other. She also sees a note that says, "It changed my life." She later heads back to her luxury apartment, and after some consideration, decides to insert the flash drive into her TV. She sees a short video, one that promises it can make a better version of her with just a single injection of something called the substance. It explains that she is the Matrix, and that the injection will start a cellular division process and create a newer, better version of herself. The only catch is that there must be a balance, 7 days for each version of herself, the old one and the new one. And she must always remember that the two are one. She gets up and throws the drive into the garbage, deciding to go out for some drinks at the bar. While out, she sees a younger couple at the bar flirting, and it makes her jealous, leading to her having a few too many drinks. After spending some time in the bathroom back at her house, she smashes a snow globe against a picture of herself in her living room and decides to call the number on the back of the flash drive. A man answers the phone promptly, and she tells him that she wants to order. He asks for her address and then gives her one to write down as well. Before she can finish writing, he hangs up the phone. The next day, she already has an envelope from the place she called, and inside the envelope, she finds a key card with the number 503 printed on it. She immediately gets dressed and heads to the address she had written on her hand. She eventually finds the location, seeing that it is in a rundown part of town. She sees a very questionable doorway with the address spray painted above it and approaches it cautiously. There is a corrugated metal door in front of her and a key card reader to her right. She takes out her card and scans it at the reader, and the door starts to open, but then stops only halfway up. She decides to duck under the door anyway and head inside. She carefully walks down a narrow corridor that is in the same shoddy condition as the rest of the area. Suddenly, she finds herself standing in a clean white room that appears very out of place in what is otherwise a slum. She sees a locker with her number on it and swipes her card at the lock, revealing a package inside. She takes the package home and opens it up, seeing a series of instructions inside and several large syringes. There is a single-use activator, a daily-use stabilizer for the other self, a switching mechanism, and food for both the Matrix and the other self. She reads the simple instructions, and we see that she must switch every 7 days, no exceptions. The final card reads, "Remember you are one." After some deliberation, she decides to inject the activator. At first, it seems like nothing is happening, but then she suddenly loses control of her body and collapses onto the floor. Her eyes go wide as something starts moving underneath the skin of her back. Her back then suddenly begins to split open, and something starts to climb its way out of her body. We then switch to a first-person perspective of the new Elizabeth and see the old Elizabeth's body on the floor. She approaches the mirror and wipes away the steam, revealing she is now a much younger version of herself. She looks back at the older version of herself, with her body lying on the floor, somehow still alive. She promptly gets down and sews up the hole in her back that she had just climbed out of, and then hooks her up to her food supply. After getting out of the shower, she notices that her nose is starting to bleed and her ears start ringing. She realizes that she needs to stabilize and takes the large syringe out of its packaging and begins to draw a clear fluid out of the older Elizabeth's back, enough to last for 7 days. She then gives herself a shot and begins to feel better. After getting dressed, she decides to go to the casting call her boss had put out to try to find her replacement. As she walks into the room, the casting directors are both immediately impressed with her appearance. She introduces herself as Sue. She gets offered the job on the spot and is then introduced to her old boss, Harvey, who also immediately falls in love with her. He says he'll do anything to get her on board, and she tells him that she can only work every other week, as she needs to take care of her sick mother. Harvey agrees to her stipulation, and she quickly sees a new billboard is put up with her picture on it again, advertising her new show. She starts to get comfortable in her new life with her new body and continues to use the stabilizer cartridges as the days go by. After 7 days, she goes back to the Elizabeth still lying on her bathroom floor and sets things up to make the switch back. Once their blood mixes, she passes out and wakes up back in her old body, now in horrible pain from the stitches in her back. She eventually showers and heads back to her old studio, where Harvey is waiting for her with a box of her stuff after clearing out her old dressing room to make room for Sue. She takes the box and heads home, counting the days until she gets to be Sue again. A short time later, Sue is back, setting up her syringe full of stabilizer and going back to enjoying her life. She decides she needs a place to keep her other body aside from the bathroom floor, so she makes a hole in the bathroom wall and manages to construct a small hidden room next to her shower. The next day, she starts her new show, and after a successful first episode, goes out later that night to celebrate. After a long night out, she comes home with a guy from the club. As the two start to get intimate, her nose starts to bleed again. She runs to the bathroom and locks the door. She realizes that she needs to stabilize again, but doesn't have any left. She isn't in a position to switch bodies at the moment, so she takes a little extra fluid from the older Elizabeth's body and goes back to the guy she brought home. The next day, Elizabeth wakes up back in her old body and sees a mess in the house from Sue partying during the week. She also sees a motorcycle helmet and a note from the owner. When she goes to grab the note, she sees that her finger is now disfigured and old-looking, with a rotted fingernail. She tries to wash it off, but she can't, and soon realizes that it is the consequences of having taken that little bit of extra fluid from herself while she was Sue. She calls the number from the back of the flash drive again, asking the man if there is any way to reverse the damage that was done. He tells her that there isn't and reminds her that she and Sue are one before hanging up the phone. She later receives notice that her refill kit has been delivered to her deposit box, and she hurriedly heads out the door to retrieve it. She hears some strange noises after picking up her package and ducks into a nearby diner after leaving the building. After ordering some coffee, the older man across from her asks her if she thinks the wait is long. She is confused, but he then says, 7 days. She then sees the birthmark on his wrist, realizing that this must be the original version of the man from the doctor's office. She gets up to leave, and the man asks her if Sue has started eating away at her yet. She runs out the door in a hurry, desperate to get back home. Sue then wakes up in the hidden room after a confusing dream. As she heads out of the bathroom, ready to start her new week, she sees that this time Elizabeth has left a mess in the house for her to clean up, with chicken bones left out in front of the TV. Upset about the mess, she calls the phone number again and complains about Elizabeth to the man on the phone. Later that day, in a meeting with Harvey, he tells her that her ratings are going through the roof and that they have big plans for her, including doing a New Year's Eve show. Unfortunately, she needs some extra time now for work, so she decides to steal a few extra days from Elizabeth by draining more of the fluid from her back. Sue proceeds to enjoy the next few days before finally switching back over to Elizabeth. Once Elizabeth wakes up, she realizes that most of her body is now older looking and slightly deformed, with one of her legs and arms seeing the worst of it. She calls the phone number again, furious with Sue. The man again reminds her that the two are one. She asks if there's anything he can do for her, and he tells her that she can stop the program whenever she wants to and go back to being her old self again. She looks down at her now deformed body and reluctantly decides that she will continue on the program. Over the following week, Elizabeth starts to get crazy with jealousy over Sue, leading to her trashing the apartment with her cooking and putting newspaper over the windows so she wouldn't have to see Sue's billboard anymore. They switch back again at the end of the week, and Sue wakes up to the giant mess left all over the apartment. Absolutely furious with Elizabeth, she decides she is going to drain her dry and brings in as many containers as she can into her small hidden room. She starts to fill them all with the fluid from Elizabeth, even as it gets increasingly harder to do. After spending many weeks as Sue, it was finally time for the big New Year's Eve show. Sue realizes she is out of fluid finally, so she heads back into the room to get more from Elizabeth. Unfortunately, she's only able to extract a small amount of black substance from her body, as it appears the fluid has stopped regenerating. She calls the phone number again, asking the man what to do when the fluid is gone. He tells her that the only way to regenerate the fluid is to switch back for 7 days. That is the balance. Barely able to continue standing, she manages to get to the switch kit in the bathroom and then get back to Elizabeth's body. Elizabeth then wakes up and makes her way out of the small room, hardly able to walk. She sees her body is now completely deformed and has aged by decades. Horrified and angry, she calls the phone number one more time, telling the man that she wants to stop. She wants to end the program. He tells her that there will be a final package waiting for her at her deposit box, and once she uses it, she will be out of the program for good. She goes and picks up the package and brings it back home, dragging Sue's body out into the living room. She takes a giant syringe out of the box that is filled with a black substance and labeled termination. She sticks the syringe in Sue's chest and starts to slowly push down on the plunger. After injecting most of the termination liquid into Sue, she decides she doesn't want to go through with it and tries to bring Sue back to life by switching with her again. This time, however, the switch leads to them both becoming conscious at the same time, with Sue waking up and looking at Elizabeth. Elizabeth apologizes to Sue, but Sue sees the termination needle on the ground and starts to chase Elizabeth. She chases her into the bathroom and smashes her head against the mirror, badly injuring Elizabeth's face. After chasing her into the other room, Sue then proceeds to kick Elizabeth on the ground until she is no longer moving. Sue then heads out and starts to get ready for her big New Year's Eve show. While she is in her dressing room, she starts to feel uneasy and excuses herself to the bathroom. Once inside, she starts coughing and a tooth falls out of her mouth, with a few more falling out after. She runs out of the bathroom, trying to leave the building before anybody is able to see her. On her way out, she runs into her boss, who introduces her to the shareholders of the company. He asks her for a big smile, and she manages to give him one without showing her teeth. While in the elevator, she notices that one of her ears falls off, which really causes her to panic. She manages to make it back home and into her medicine cabinet, where she finds the activator bottle with some fluid left in it. She sees that it says single use only, but uses it anyway, hoping to make a better version of herself as she collapses. Her eyes go wide as her back starts to open up, giving birth to a new version of herself, while the words single use continue to flash before her eyes. The new her gets up from the floor and looks in the mirror, seeing that she has now become a horrific monster, with her entire body twisted and distorted from the substance. On her back, we see the face of Elizabeth, with her mouth open in a silent scream. She decides then to put her dress back on and get ready to go out for her big night at the New Year's Eve show. She glues a cutout of Elizabeth's face over hers and heads down to the party. She manages to get there and walk out onto the stage right on cue, leaving everyone confused as to what they are looking at. Her mask then falls off her face, and the crowd sees her terrifying appearance underneath. People begin screaming and pointing, with many fearing for their lives and others calling for her to be attacked. Somebody then hits her, causing her head to completely explode, with a new one starting to grow in its place. A stream of blood begins to spray from her body, covering everyone in the crowd. She manages to leave the building and is fleeing down the street when she finally collapses, falling onto the ground in an explosion of body parts. A little piece of her body with Elizabeth's face on it breaks off from the rest and inches its way over to the place where her star is on the street. She sits on top of the star, feeling the spotlight on her one last time, before finally melting into a pile of goo. A man later comes by with a cleaning machine, removing all that remains of Elizabeth Sparkle. Like and subscribe to see more videos like this one. See you next time.